guys, we got a special guest with us today. We do have the one and only Tony Gomez from LFD, and we want to say thank you for joining us. How are you doing, brother?
Doing all right, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Good to be here. It's our pleasure, and thank you. I mean, I know you've got a busy week this week. You got so much stuff going on. Before we get into what's currently going on, let's tell everybody a little bit about your backstory. Your dad, well, of course, was LFD, and you got into the business, but that wasn't your intent. I mean, like, you grew up, where did you grow up?
Born and raised in Miami, Florida.
Okay, so you were born and raised in Miami. Like, at what point did you decide I'm going into the business?
I don't think I actually made that decision until I think it was, maybe late junior year of college, early senior year, or somewhere around that time. I know towards the end of the college experience, and yeah, like you said, it wasn't my original intention. I was actually an English major. I studied, with an emphasis in writing, and I kind of, I was planning to go to film school and do screenwriting. That was kind of my first plan. My first plan was to be a rock star. I started playing, bass and drums and a couple instruments back in middle school, and I was in bands and things like that. But it never really worked out, right? So,
so you and Michael Herculots, man, y'all should have got together and made a band.
Yeah. There's a lot of musicians in the industry, which is cool. Ernie, I think Rocky, Urklots, Nick Perdomo. There's a lot of musicians in the business.
Well, see, maybe y'all should do a band together for the next PCA or the next TPE.
This was probably like, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago at Pro Cigar. We did a band, right? Abe Flores also, he's a very, very good musician. We set up a band. Like, I was playing drums, Abe Flores was on bass, Klaas Kerner was playing keyboards, and then we had a whole hodgepodge of people singing, like my dad, Hanky, Hochi, Raquel, Nirka. Like all the Pro Cigar people were there just singing. We all wore like 80s wigs and stuff like that. It was awesome, dude. It was awesome. We played 3 songs.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. So where's that video at? There's got to be a video somewhere.
Yeah. I think Half Wheel put one up. There's a couple on YouTube here and there. If you look for Pro Cigar Band or something, you'll find it.
Oh, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna put a link down in the show notes so people can go check that out. That's awesome, man.
It turned out surprisingly well. I had nightmares about it because nobody knew the lyrics or anything. I thought it was going to go terribly. It actually went well. There was like 500 people there too, which is cool.
Very cool, man. So, what year did you get into the cigar biz?
So I started during my senior year. But to go back to the story, I had like a moment of clarity one day, and I'm pretty sure I was actually, we were having a party at our house, and I was playing beer pong. And I just had one of those moments of clarity where it was like, most people don't get opportunities like this in their life. And if I don't at least try this, I'm stupid, I try it. If I don't like it, well, I find something else and I move on. But, an opportunity is right there. You take it, right? And to do something with your pops and to be involved in such a cool industry, it was kind of a no-brainer. And I fell in love very quickly, and I knew I wanted to stay. But yeah, what was the last question? I got lost in my train of thought.
Well, and let me ask you this though. I mean, if you would not have jumped in and you missed that opportunity, man, you would be living with regret.
Sure.
And I mean, well, maybe you wouldn't because you wouldn't have known what you missed, but knowing now, now that you know what it is to be in the business.
Absolutely. And that's what I didn't want. I didn't want to regret not giving it a shot, and it turned into much more than that. I've committed myself to it fully since then.
Now, do you live full time in the Dominican?
Yeah, I spend the great majority of my time here. Yeah. Oh yeah, you were asking when I started, right? So
right. What year was that?
That was 2009. I was my senior year of college, right? So I had met with my father and Ines. We sat down and kind of, made a game plan for how we were going to do this. And we decided, I was going to start off as a sales rep, and I was going to cover Florida, right? So that was my first gig, from everything from Pensacola to Key West. I covered the whole state. And so actually on weekends during my senior year, I kind of started to get my feet wet a little bit. I would head out on Friday, And then I went to Florida State, so I was in Tallahassee. So, I drive down to like Orlando or to Tampa or to Jacksonville, spend the weekend, visit the shops, kind of get acclimated a little bit. And that's how we started. And then after that, man, I hit the road directly. I remember my buddies and we all graduated, together, and we threw a big party, of course, and the next day was IPCPR in New Orleans, like the day after graduation. So I remember, at some point, like at 3 or 4 in the morning, I left the party and I went into the shower. I took a quick shower. I put on a suit. I had my bag packed already, called a cab, and I went to the airport. And I landed in New Orleans. And I remember being, almost blackout drunk when I went to the airport, and I just woke up in New Orleans. Like, oh, thank God I made it.
And like, what did you, when you first started though, like what was your role? How did you get into the company?
I was a sales rep. I covered the state of Florida as a sales rep.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
And
So
so, I mean,
I did that for 4 years.
have you had any sales experience before?
In retail, I worked at an Apple store. I had sales experience in retail. Like I said, I worked in an Apple store, and I also had road experience because I was a delivery driver for a pizza restaurant back in high school. So I knew what it was like to be in my car all day, which is very valuable when you're a rep. And I had a little bit of sales experience from Apple, which teaches you how to sell a product that's easy to sell that people want.
Right.
Much like NFT.
So let's back up for a minute. You were a pizza delivery guy?
Yeah.
So that's humble beginnings right there, bro.
I mean, listen, I'm not gonna say, I didn't come from the streets or anything like that. I had a comfortable childhood. Everything was taken care of. I didn't grow up in a mansion or anything like that either. But
But if
I'm
you're
not gonna go as
delivering
far as to say
pizzas,
that.
you're not like living off of,
No, I didn't have my dad's credit card or anything. I made my own money. I spent my own money. I
right,
remember
right.
when I first wanted a job in high school, my dad actually told me, like, you have to go work for somebody else before you work for me. And so then I went to Pizza Hut. My first job was at Pizza Hut, answering phones, doing dishes, making pizzas. And then I found a job at a different restaurant that let me do deliveries.
Nice.
Yeah.
So throughout your career at LFD, like where did you go from sales rep? What positions have you held within the company?
Official titles. I'm vice president these days, I guess. Just by default, just makes sense. But I don't know. It's never been like, oh, this is your official title or anything like that.
Right. But I mean, did you go work down on the farm? Did you go work like where all experience have you had?
Sure. So yeah, I spent about 4 years, almost 4 years on the road, and then I moved down here to the DR. And yeah, when I came down here, I spent time in every department. So I spent time in the fermentation department, helping the guys there and just kind of understanding the process. And then I spent time in classification and sorting. I did a lot of sorting myself, and then I spent time in the quality control department, and so on and so forth. So I spent a significant amount of time in each department, so to get an understanding of what's going on everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. So out of all the different departments you like went and participated and oversaw, like which department was like your biggest excitement? Like you learned the most from that department?
That's a good question. I guess quality control, because it's when you find a problem in a cigar, then you then have to go all the way back, right? You have to trace all the steps back and see what's wrong with it, and plus, quality control is also smoking, I guess, right? So when there's an issue with a cigar, there's a long chain of events before it gets there, right? So you have to go track it down and find out what it is. So you can learn a lot there. I spent a little bit of time rolling. I'm not a very good roller. You don't want to smoke anything that I've rolled, but I've done it enough to understand the process. And if I'm looking at a cigar, there's something wrong with it, I know what went wrong. I can grasp the concept.
So, as a consumer, and you say quality control, as a consumer, we all say, oh, it was the roller. It's
Sure.
always the roller's fault. But is there a lot
Not
of
always.
other different things that can go wrong besides just the rolling?
Of course, the tobacco has to be in proper conditions when it gets to the roller's table, right? So if it's too humid, that's going to reflect on the end product. If it's too dry as well, so there's a lot of things that will reflect on that and the cigar might not turn out well, even though the roller did a good job, right?
So, like, is there anything that could be traced back all the way to the farming part? Like, maybe it didn't get enough water this year, or maybe it got too much water. I don't really
So
know.
those wouldn't be so physical. Those would be things that you'll see more smoking the cigar, right? There's a lot of issues that you can encounter smoking the cigar that wouldn't be the roller's fault. They could be improper fermentation, curing, just the materials weren't prepared properly for the roller, things like that.
I got you. Well, cool. Well, so you started in 2009. So my quick math says you've been there for 13 years.
Yeah, yeah. Time flies, man.
Time flies, doesn't it?
It's nuts.
So let's see, 2009. You graduated probably in 2005. So you're probably around what, 34?
35. I turned
35.
35 in July.
Gotcha. So what do you plan on doing for the next 15 years?
Keep doing what we're doing, man. It's just having fun, creating.
No, wait a minute, back up. Keep doing what we're doing. That's not what you're doing at all. You're starting new stuff right now.
But I feel like that's in the spirit and ethos of LFD, is to do innovative and different things, right? I felt like when this whole NFT idea came about, that we were the perfect company for it. I mean, who else? That's what we do, right? My father started this whole thing as just some crazy idea 30 years ago. We didn't have any family history in this, so there's no. It's not like we have to follow my grandfather's tradition and my great grandfather's tradition. It's LFD made its own tradition. We've always been kind of unique and different, and that's the spirit of LFD, right? So that's kind of what I mean by that.
So, in case you don't, I don't know how you wouldn't, but in case you don't know, LFD is doing a series of NFTs, and they're releasing them one at a time for auction. And we've been through the first 4. How many are left?
We've been through the first 5. Number 5 closed yesterday.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah. So number 6 will close tomorrow at noon Eastern, and number 7 will close 48 hours after that, and then we're done, man.
So there's only 7. There's already 5 gone, and this show comes out next Tuesday, so they'll all be gone.
They'll be gone by then.
So where did you come up with the idea for that?
So, I remember one day I was at home. I think it was like a weekday night. I was at home, and after dinner I was on my couch smoking a cigar and reading through Reddit and things like that. And this was like February of last year. And that's just when like the NFT thing kind of became mainstream. And I read this article about how this guy Beeple, who's like I guess he's like the Da Vinci of NFTs or something, and he sells an NFT for like $60 million. And I just say, what the hell's an NFT, and who's Beeple, and what is this all about? So I just went down the rabbit hole, man. I got on YouTube, I Googled, I learned everything I could about NFTs. And then obviously, next thing was, well, how do I get involved in this? How can I personally, or LFD or whatever, how do we get involved in this? And I was smoking one of the cigars at the time, the cigar that we're selling via that platform, via the NFT platform, which we call the Golden. It's an Andalusian Bull, but in a Lonsdale format. So 42 by 6.25 cigar that I started making for myself like 3 years ago. I love the Bull blend. I just don't smoke really big cigars, and I think the Lonsdale, to me personally, is the most perfect size.
Well, I
it's
think
beautiful.
the Lonsdale is a really good Vitola.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my favorite. Most of my cigars are like 6 by 46.
Sure.
So it's not the Lonsdale, it's a Corona Extra, but I love that ring gauge and that length. I'm not a big fan of like a 4 by 46, but if you can give me a 6 by 46, right, that's it.
Yeah, that's a great size too, man. I'm all on board with that. But yeah, so like I was saying, I started making the cigar 3 years ago for myself, and it was kind of an experiment just to see how word of mouth would spread without ever really advertising it or selling it or anything. I'd pass it out to colleagues, friends, here and there, anytime I ran into a retailer or whatever. And it's funny because people started learning, finding out about this cigar. We would get calls in the office. people asking for it, you know, and I was like, oh, cool. So this is working. People are talking about it without us ever really pushing it in any way, you know? So I figured, okay, well, we got to figure out a way to sell this. I just don't know how yet because I want to do something special with it. I don't want to sell it via a traditional route. And that idea didn't come for like a year and a half afterwards, you know, when I found out about this whole NFT thing. And then I just remember, you know, after going down the rabbit hole on all this stuff, you know, I had that eureka moment. I looked at the cigar and I was like, you know what? Why can't this be an NFT? You know, why can't we sell a physical product via an NFT?
Well, and see,
And
that to me is the genius part, because that's what an NFT, in my opinion, should be.
right,
If it's not a work of art, if it's for a different type of business, there has to be a utility of value outside of just an NFT.
right, 100%. You know, I don't get the digital art NFTs. You know, I just don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. You know, you buy a painting. Well, painting's one of one, right? You can see the brush strokes. You know, it's real, it's physical. But the NFT, the only difference between the screenshot and the original is that you can resell the original.
Right.
That's really the only difference. So I just don't get it. I don't get the value in it. But I'm an idiot because I didn't make millions of dollars buying and selling monkey pictures, right? So, but whatever. I did understand that the technology is cool and valuable, and this can be applied, and it's going to evolve into things that make more sense. And something like what we're doing, right? I think it makes a lot more sense when you have real value attached to it rather than just purely speculative value of this digital art stuff.
And I think you're spot on for it having a outside value. And personally, for me, I believe that within the next 5 to 10 years, when you go buy a car, you'll have an NFT that shows the title. When you go
Sure.
buy a house, your NFT will be the ownership deed of that house. I think
Sure.
that's the track we're going to be on in another 5 to 10 years. Now,
100%. The houses are already being sold via NFT. It's already happening, you
oh,
know?
see, I haven't been keeping up as much as I used
Yeah.
to, but I was like, that's where we're headed. And so, uh, you know, Atabay did an NFT about a year and a half ago,
Right.
and that was in a way part of that was my idea, and I passed it on to David up at Cigar Authority,
Mm-hmm.
and he, because I knew he would have like ears that would listen. Hey man, this is a great idea. What they
Right.
did with it, I had no influence whatsoever, but I was like, we need to get the NFTs into the cigar market. And that's the only way I knew to like, hey, somebody might listen. And
Sure.
David Garofalo, great guy, love that guy. He made it
Love
happen.
the
And so then when you guys came out with one, I was like, oh, finally somebody is catching on to like what's going on, and we can, you know, really push forward in this sector. So let me
right.
ask you this though. How blown away have you been with the success of the NFTs?
Totally, man. This has surpassed my higher end expectations for it. It really has. I'm shocked. I'm really shocked by it, and you know, the support that we've had for it. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there that, you know, just they hear the word NFT and their blood boils, and you know, for whatever reason, I guess there's a lot of negative connotations with it. But you know, I anytime there's an article posted, you know, I read the comments on Facebook, and you know, I mean, you always have your haters there. You know, at first they said this idea is stupid, it's never going to work, nobody's going to buy this. And you know, now that that narrative has been shot down, now you're seeing them go to the NFT buyers, right? They're saying, "Oh, these people are stupid. They're never going to make their money back, etc." You know, there's a pattern forming here that they'll be proven wrong with that eventually, and then they'll start, you know, bad mouthing the people buying the actual cigars. You know, they'll just keep going down the line until there's nothing left to badmouth, and they'll just disappear and hate on the next thing, right?
Well, and you know, when people don't know what something is, and people are starting to get into that, there's always going to be the haters.
Yeah.
Because they have no idea. And then you tell them that it's not something that you can physically hold in your hand. And now they're like, oh, well, this is make believe. This is ridiculous.
Sure. But you know what happens is, and you know, this is part of a larger problem in society, is that, you know, you can tell that people just read the headline and they don't read the actual article, right? Because then you get comments that are like, Uh, well, I can't smoke an NFT. Well, you didn't read the article, the NFT is for a real cigar. So yes, you can smoke it. But that's a problem. People read the article, and people read the headline, they don't read the article, and then they already form an opinion and they talk about it. And yeah, that's what happens in politics and everything now.
Oh, across the
Yeah.
board. And,
Yeah.
we've turned into a nation of headlines
Uh-huh.
and what we call clickbait. And so, very rarely do people read the articles. It's
Right.
crazy.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's just how it goes, man. That's what it is.
So let me ask you this. What does your dad think of NFTs?
He's loving it, I mean, I don't think he understood what the hell I was talking about at first, but he supported the idea from the very beginning. I think it sounded crazy, but uh, again, it's in the spirit of LFD, right? Because LFD was a crazy idea. LFD wasn't supposed to work. This was early '90s. This is before the cigar boom. All the manufacturers were families. That been companies been passed down for generations. There was no newcomers. It's not like today. Today we see new brands all the time, which is a good thing, right? Because people want to be a part of the industry. So that's a sign that it's healthy. But back then, the industry wasn't doing so well and there was no newcomers. Nobody showed up and opened a factory, right? So everybody told my dad, "This is crazy. You shouldn't do it. It's not going to work, etc." And he did it anyway because he believed in it. He wanted to do it, and he thought he could. So he went forward with it, right? Opened a factory without having any clue how to make cigars. Bought a farm without having ever grown anything in his life. So, like I said, this is very much in the same spirit, and he supported it immediately, even
Wow,
though he
that's
maybe
awesome,
didn't
man. Now,
fully understand
how
it.
old is your dad?
He's 68.
So
68.
I'm impressed that your dad at 68 was like, you know what? I don't know what it is. You tell me a little bit about it and let's do it.
Yeah. He's you know what? That's one of the things I respect the most about him is with all the accolades he's earned over the years, you can go on and on. He's been called the most innovative mind in the industry, he's in Cigar Aficionado Hall of Fame, et cetera, so on and so forth. He's always been willing and open to hearing out my ideas. And if he doesn't go with it, he will explain to me why. So he's never brushed me off or anything like that. So I really respect that because he didn't have to. He's never had to listen to me, right? He's been very successful, totally on his own. So yeah, he supported it from the very beginning, and which is very cool and yeah, man, it worked out, thankfully.
That's awesome, man. I love the whole story that your dad opened a cigar factory when people just weren't opening new cigar factories.
Right.
Because, I mean, at that time, how many cigar brands do you think there were? I bet there wasn't more than 25.
Yeah, maybe something like that. There's always smaller brands that maybe have gone forgotten by history, but of the main players, sure, maybe something like
And
that.
then how many do you think there are today?
No, there's hundreds, man.
There's these crazy numbers.
Yeah,
I mean, it's in the hundreds and hundreds.
yeah, absolutely.
And so doing it back in the 90s when, I mean, everyone had to be like, man, that's risky. You're
Yeah,
going to lose all your money.
absolutely. And that's what everybody told them, That's what everybody told them. Thankfully, my father, he didn't finish high school, he didn't go to college, so he's got no formal education on business or anything. And he's got a lot of street smarts, he's got a lot of common sense, and he's got a lot of tenacity. My dad's like the type of guy that, you kick the door down, go in head first, just pure elbow grease and just make it happen. So all of that worked for him worked in his favor, and he was able to pull it off.
Now, being that he was street smart, he didn't have a formal education, did he push you to go to college?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a requirement, very important.
I find that's pretty much the norm that when, especially back in his generation, it's like you didn't get an education. I want you to have that so that it provides you opportunity that I wouldn't have gotten or I didn't get because I didn't have that. And it doesn't make you better or smarter so much as it just gives you the opportunity for doors to open.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's very common. Guys from his generation, I think that's very common. They want their children to do that because a lot of a lot of people in my dad's generation didn't go to college. It wasn't as common as it is today. Today it's so common that it's almost becoming obsolete, perhaps. But yeah.
I mean, right now, I think we are at a pivotal point on whether you should go to college again or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because when everybody has a degree, it's not as valuable as it was when only 30 or 40% of people had degrees.
Right, absolutely. And I think what we're going to start seeing in the future is more trade-oriented education as opposed to just general kind of college educations, right? I think, like Google and these Silicon Valley companies, they're starting their own schools to train people in programming or whatever it is, they need to specialize in. And I think that's probably going to become a lot more common in the future because, college debt, I went to Florida State, which is, it was a cheap school. We didn't pay a lot.
Hey, back then it was cheap.
Right. It's a lot more expensive now. But yeah, it's becoming, it's just insanely expensive. And I'm not so sure it's always worth it,
Well, I didn't finish my college career, but I had a damn good time. And so, for a big portion of college kids, it's just a very expensive party life.
Right.
I don't know how much you're prepared to go to work in the corporate world if that's the experience you got. Now, and I know guys that went to school and they were serious and they learned a lot, but for all my friends and myself, that's not what we were at school for. We were there to have a good time.
I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I said, I didn't finish college, but man, those were the best years of my life.
A lot of fun, perhaps too much.
Yeah. So what do you got planned for the next 15 years? Let's get back to that.
I'm curious to see where this whole NFT thing goes in the industry at large. And I'm curious to see what the winners do with the NFTs. And, we're going to be right there with them, helping them game plan strategies and see, because there's a lot of possibilities in what can happen with this, Well,
for those that don't know, Tony, like if you buy the NFT, what is it that you get with that?
So essentially, you're buying the rights to purchase the cigar. You're buying the rights to be one of the only 7 people in the world to purchase the cigar. So you buy the NFT, and automatically you get what we're calling the gold bullion humidor, which is this beautiful humidor we made out in Spain, and it's shaped like a gold bar. This beautiful shine and finish on it, and the humidor itself will come with 50 of the cigars already inside. So you get that automatically with the NFT. Then after that, you'll be able to purchase up to 70 of these cigars per month for as long as you own the NFT, right? So that's indefinite. And, one of the cool things about NFTs is that, it's a resellable asset, right? So these guys, in the future, should they decide to, they'll be able to resell this NFT, theoretically for a profit. Can't guarantee that, obviously, but we've already seen that there are a lot of willing buyers for this. So there's a market for it. So that's how this works, in short.
And so long term, I mean, the individual that buys one of your NFTs, they have options. I mean, if I'm the owner of your NFT, maybe I buy 70 a month, but I just sit on them.
Sure, absolutely. They're going to come up with a lot of ways.
The ones I smoke.
Sure, exactly. But yeah, like I was saying, I'm curious to see how this NFT unfolds and how everything goes. And I'm curious to see, because I imagine that, the industry is going to start to adopt this in different ways. So I'm curious to see how that happens. And yeah, the next 15 years, man, I continue having fun and creating things. That's what I like to do. I like to create. I like to be creative. And just, making sure that we maintain the standards of quality and everything that have made LFD what it is today. And then just having fun, man. The point here is that we love cigars and we love making cigars and we make them for ourselves, and when you love something, you just hope everybody else agrees with you. And luckily they have with LFD up to this point,
What I think is going to be for me, the most interesting part is like, Atabay did their thing and they did it as I think it was a charity event thing. And I don't know the numbers for sure, but I think they sold like for $1,000 each.
Okay.
And it was basically a piece of art that you get to have of a cigar.
Right.
But
I remember very well when the Atabey one came out. I had been like working on our project for a few months, and you know,
so
like
you'd already jumped
right.
into this.
And you know, I mean, I had all this pressure in my head because we have to be the first one. It's like so important to be the first, you know. And I, you know, I would have sleepless nights thinking that somebody else is planning one and they're going to release one before me. And then I remember seeing the headline for the Atabey one. You know, so Atabey releases first NFT, and then you know, my heart dropped, man. Like I was, oh man, that really hurt. But then, you know, I saw that there were two very different projects, right? I mean, they were selling, you know, the artwork, the graphic image, so it wasn't exactly the same thing. And so, okay, fine, you know, we're still the first of its kind, you know.
But also, I remember when it came out, the negativity on the responses, like on Facebook. Right. I mean, it was a lot of bash,
right?
And I felt like Atabey might have missed the mark by just doing a work of art, because I always think that the NFT has to have some type of value. It gives the owner something that nobody else has. Sure. And then you come along and do it the right way, in my opinion. I mean, they did it first and it was just on, you know, hey, this would be cool to do.
Sure.
But you came along and did it, and the way you guys have done it, I think is going to take the cigar industry by storm. I think in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to be seeing so many NFTs in the cigar industry. And so, I mean, even though you're not the first, you're the first to do it this way.
Right. Right. And that's what was important. You know, I wanted to have the first actual cigar released via NFT, you know, for the historical significance of it and everything, you know, I wanted to be first, you know.
Yeah, and I applaud you for doing it the way you did it. I'm super impressed. And man, the success of this NFT release has blown me away. Like, whenever I saw the first release with Atabey, I was kind of like, wow, that's not very good. You know, how much money it costs. But then you turned around and did it and knocked a grand slam, not even a home run, just a grand slam. And it's like, that is what I envisioned years ago. And so hats off for making it happen, man. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah, this is, it's surreal. It's surreal.
I can't even imagine. I would imagine it is very surreal. Well, hey, man, I don't want to take up more of your time. I know you're a busy man, but thank you so much for coming on and telling us about a little bit of your history and what's going on with the NFTs. We look forward to see what you guys do next. You are, you know, they say the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. You're like your dad, and that you're innovative and you're pushing limits and that you're trying new stuff. And so you're one to watch, because we want to see what new ideas you come up with next.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me. And thanks for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you, man. And you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.